Good morning to all of you. Thank you for coming. The topic this morning that we're here to talk about is the ongoing situation in Puerto Rico. I think the reason you see such a pronounced reaction in this state is because the Puerto Rican community is such a vibrant part of this state. The largest population of Puerto Ricans outside of the island of Puerto Rico is in New York. If you're a born and raised New Yorker like I am, you grew up with the Puerto Rican community, you grew up in their homes, they're your friends, they're your family. And it is personal. And that's why you see the dramatic response from the state, which is continuing today. I want to acknowledge Ken Rasky, who's the president and CEO of the Greater New York Hospital Association. You'll hear from him in a moment. Jill Ferrillo, who's the executive director of the New York State Nurses Association. Maria Castaneda, who is the secretary-treasurer of 1199 SEIU. Kevin Dayhill, who is the CEO of Suburban Alliance, and Dr. Howard Zucker, who is the commissioner for the New York State Department of Health. As I said, the response by this state has been overwhelming. We're doing everything we can. Thus far, we sent over 60 National Guard soldiers down, 70 Port Authority personnel to help them get the airports up and running and the shipping ports operational. We sent 50 troopers to supplement the police activities of the police on the island. We sent 20 engineers in power grid reconstruction, which is a big problem on the island now. And we're sending another 125 National Guard engineers in the next few days as we move towards the rebuilding of roads, bridges, et cetera. Today, there's going to be one in a series of shipments of medical supplies and medical personnel. There are about 67 hospitals on the island. About 50 of those hospitals are actually operating on generator. Many of them are running short of supplies because when you couldn't get the goods in and you couldn't distribute the goods, that also involved medical goods and medical equipment. So there's a two-pronged program. One is providing medical equipment, medicine, bandages, the normal type of equipment for a hospital. And again, there'll be a series of shipments that will come out to about $500,000 in supplies. And then medical personnel. The governor of Puerto Rico has requested our deployment of medical personnel to help. We have about 100 doctors who are prepared to go and help, and we have about 200 nurses who are prepared to go down to help. So that is something we are very appreciative of. I want to thank the UJA, which is providing the transportation. I want to thank 1199 and the Nurses Association that's putting together the personnel. And I want to thank the man you'll hear from next, which is Ken Rasky, Greater New York Hospital Association. For the hospitals and the medical community to be making this gesture now is really significant because the medical community itself is under a lot of pressure. There have been a series of federal cutbacks that are hurting hospitals, that are forcing them to find more efficiencies, more savings. And even in the midst of that, you see this show of tremendous generosity. And to me, that makes it even more powerful and more poignant. I believe this state has done more to help Puerto Rico than any state in the United States. And I am proud of that on behalf of the people of this state, because you learn a lot about people when the pressure's on. You know, when everything's going fine, it's easy to be nice and get along. But you want to see what a person is really made of, or people are really made of. It's when the pressure's on. And how do they react in a crisis? How do they react when people really need help? And I'll tell you, no one steps up to the plate like New Yorkers. And they say, well, you know, New Yorkers are tough and gruff, and we're a little tough and gruff. Maybe it's a little bit of an act, but we are also generous, compassionate, and loving. And that's the message to the people of Puerto Rico. We are sending supplies, medical personnel, whatever you need, but we want the people of Puerto Rico to know they are not alone. They have friends, that we are with them, and that we love them. And that is the basic message of today. With that, I'll turn it over to Ken Raskin.
Thank you, Governor. Let me first compliment the Governor. His spirited leadership allows us in the hospital community to give what we need to give to assist our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. There is a bond, as the Governor pointed out, between New York and Puerto Rico, long-standing, and we're proud of that. Now they're in need, and we're prepared to step up to the plate. The unfolding tragedy is absolutely amazing by any stretch of that term, and the proportions of it are extraordinary. The healthcare community at this point is sending down supplies. This is one of many missions that our partners, and I'll go into our partnership in a few minutes, that our partners and us have been involved in, and we will continue to do this as long as there is need. In addition, as the Governor pointed out, our hospitals are prepared to deploy medical teams of physicians and nurses and other personnel as well to Puerto Rico, and the logistics on that are being worked out as we speak. Now, also, the hospital community has put together a fund to send money down there, and right now, I believe, sir, we're up to about $5 million, and hopefully we'll reach a goal of at least 10. But in order to make all of this work, thank you, sir. In order to make all of this work, we need great partners. And to my right, Maria Castaneda from the 1199 SEIU, thank you for all of your help. Jill, I'll introduce you in a minute, but thank you. And all of the people that you represent, thank you so much for all the hard work. These are some of the people that actually worked in the in putting the material together to be shipped out today and for future days as well. Finally, it would be timely to tell you about our work with the UJA Federation New York and AFIA. Without their help and leadership as well, Mark Meaden from UJA, Danielle Butin from AFIA, they have permitted us to ship these supplies via transport today and for future days as well. So thank you so much for all of your assistance. It's been great. And I want to point out one member of our staff that has been the gelling agent for getting the supplies there, and that's Lee Perlman, our president of GNYHA Services. Lee, thank you so much. You've been absolutely terrific. Now, Jill Ferrillo, NISNA.
Good morning. I'm Jill Ferrello. I'm the Executive Director of the New York State Nurses Association. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Governor Cuomo. Thank you, Maria Castaneda, and thank you, UJA and Daniela from AFIA. Our hearts continue to break over the devastation that we see every day in Puerto Rico. But throughout this tragedy, it has also been absolutely amazing to see New Yorkers come together and to step up and to support our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. I personally have been especially moved by the contributions of New York's healthcare community, from the hospitals to the nurses to 1199. I'm very moved by that. from donating goods to contributing their time to package the supplies that happened yesterday. That those supplies are going to go out today in the shipment. And so many of our nurses, over 200, have volunteered to go to Puerto Rico. Our New York nurses have shown the same dedication and compassion during this crisis that they show every day in New York to care for their patients. I'm confident that we can save lives and we can deliver the support and the care that Puerto Rico needs to recover from Hurricane Maria. I'm proud of all that we're doing to support Puerto Rico, but I specifically want to thank Governor Cuomo for spearheading the efforts that you have spearheaded in the last 2 weeks. From the very beginning, Governor Cuomo, you have understood the need in Puerto Rico, and you've rallied New Yorkers, including our organization, to support this recovery effort, and we're so grateful for that, and we're grateful for your leadership. Thank you.
Amen. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for myself or my colleagues? Mr. Askey, Ms. Ferrillo? The goods will be going down on a plane today. As I said before, there'll be a series of shipments going down, but we're at the Westchester Airport today because the plane will be leaving, and they need to get an early flight because there's air traffic going into Puerto Rico. So that's why we're doing this event at the airport.
Governor, what have you seen personally in these hospitals, or what is the immediate need of patients? Because some of them are in bad shape, they need surgery.
We went down literally on the first flight that could get into Puerto Rico from New York. We went the next day. And the devastation is actually worse than the pictures and the TV show. And it's everywhere. You know, just think about it. When you have no power, you have no water, you have no communication, and you're operating a facility as sophisticated as a hospital. And hospitals rely on daily shipments of goods and deliveries. And all of that was just shut off immediately. So hospitals tend to be one of the most urgent needs in any of these circumstances. And that's why Governor Rosselló's point was one of his most urgent needs was medical supplies, equipment, et cetera. And that's exactly what this is responsive to.
The president is also heading down to Puerto Rico today. What's been your thought on how he's handled the situation?
Well, two parts. How he has handled the situation. Governmentally, FEMA handled the situation, right? I used to be in the federal government, Secretary of HUD, and I responded to emergencies and disasters all across the country, all over the world. Haiti, Dominican Republic, we were in Costa Rica, we were in Ecuador. I don't believe that FEMA understood the issue that they were going to be faced with in Puerto Rico. And I believe they made an operational error in not pre-deploying sufficient resources. I've seen it done right, I've seen it done wrong. And in my opinion, this was not done correctly. Puerto Rico is not like dealing with Texas or Florida or New York. Puerto Rico, the government is basically insolvent. You don't have a sophisticated infrastructure. You don't have a depth of personnel governmentally. And they were going to need to rely on FEMA more than most states that FEMA deals with. But that was the nature of the situation. That's what they had to anticipate. And they should have what they call pre-deployed, more personnel, more equipment, so the next morning they were ready to go. They should have done, before the storm, what they're doing now, right? Well, now we have 6,000 or whatever number they use, personnel. Yeah, well, if you have them there now, why didn't you think to have them there pre-deployed or the morning after the storm, because time is your enemy. The more time goes on, the more despair, the more pain, etc. Also, personally, pre-deployment, you know, you can only get accused of being over-prepared, right? A couple of weeks ago, there was a possible storm that was going to hit Long Island. I think it was the tale of Jose. There's so many storms, it's hard to keep track of them. We pre-deployed trucks, boats, personnel from all across the state to Long Island. Turns out the storm didn't hit. And then we had to ship everything back. Well, Governor, you were over-prepared. Yes, guilty. I was over-prepared. But I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. And that's what happened with FEMA, I believe, in Puerto Rico. It is not Florida. It's not Texas. It's not New York. It's an island that has unique needs, and they were not attuned to that. So I think FEMA was slow to respond. On the president, I think it's good that he's going there now. I think it would have been better if he had gone earlier. You know, my first rule is show up, because there's a human dynamic to this. There's an emergency, there's a storm, there's a hurricane, there's an earthquake. You're dealing with people, and people are frightened, and they're alone, and they're anxious, and they're wondering what's going to happen. How do I rebuild my house? They have a feeling of isolation. Showing up when you're in a position of power, you're President of the United States, would give such a reassurance to the community. Don't worry, you're not alone, we're here, we're going to work with you every step of the way. That is a powerful gift that that office gives you. And I think if he had gone earlier, he would have comforted the people of Puerto Rico earlier. I also think it would have dispelled a lot of the political animus that generated since, which only compounds the situation, right? I still think of this as from the on-the-ground perspective. You have people who are trying to put their lives back together. The last thing they need is, oh, there's a political fight about this. I need a front door and a roof, and I don't need a political fight. So those are my thoughts.
Governor, we've heard also lots of stories of resources not getting into the hands that they are most needed in, or delays. And the story that was highlighted yesterday were some members of the FDNY just taking the initiative and getting in a Red Cross truck and getting those supplies where they need to go. Can you maybe highlight some other stories that maybe we're not aware of New Yorkers that are already there doing, you know, fantastic work?
Well, I gave you the numbers of New Yorkers who were there. And again, I believe New York has sent more help than any state in the nation, and we are very proud of that. It's a testament to the people of New York. Everyone says the same thing. It's the distribution on the island, which is now problematic. You can get a ship in, you can get a plane in, but the distribution is the problem. And we hear the same thing from the National Guard, from the state police who are down there, because the distribution network, you have two problems. One, you have to clear the roads. Two, you need trucks and drivers and fuel who know the island. And that, again, is something that would be pre-planned before the event. I say to my emergency management team, when I was in the federal government, there was one session I went to. After the storm, it's too late. If you start getting ready after the storm, it's too late. Everything had to be done before. And the questions of distribution, that's a planning question, a logistical question that should have been worked out before. Okay?
Okay.
We'll let them get on a plane. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.